Hey everybody, and welcome back to Jay's Retro Reactions. Today we're going to be reacting to the movie Rukayavanti. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that correctly, so please let me know in the comments if I got it right or if I got it terribly wrong, and apologies if I did get it terribly wrong, but I don't speak Finnish. Second in the poll to Talvisoda when I ran the Finnish war movie poll, and that it also is set in the time of the continuation war. Other than that, I really don't know anything else. I don't know if the ambushes are by the Finnish soldiers or the Soviet soldiers. I presume by the Finnish, but I could be wrong. We'll see in the movie. So, as I always say, guys, enough of me talking, and let's get on with the show.
Welcome to my party, we're just getting started. A life is a dream or a nightmare scarring.
I'm just smiling to myself because the opening scene of the movie is a picture of the Virgin Mary and the baby Jesus, and after all the flack I got both on The Unknown Soldier and Talvisoda about mentioning religion and its importance maybe at that time to the Finnish people, and a cross hanging on this guy's neck, each of the three movies was saying religion playing a big role. So we've got some very melancholy or depressive music in the background. Beautiful music, but dark. And obviously with the lighting and shading that was going on, it's setting the scene that bad things are happening or bad things are about to happen, or dark times.
Minunkin miehistäni moni oli ollut mukana jo talvisodassa niin, että tiedettiin mitä odotettavissa oli.
Okay, so this guy's lucky enough to be leading a platoon of men who, the majority of whom have fought in the winter war, so are going to have experience, which is valuable.
Minkäslainen sulla on se uimataito?
Ei tässä nyt mitään Weissmüllereitä olla.
Weissmuller, Johnny Weissmuller, the famous Tarzan, the Tarzan I would have grew up on as a kid with that famous Tarzan roar. He was also an Olympic swimmer, if I remember. If someone can let me know, where is this in Finland? It looks quite nice. I know it's obviously on the coast, but whereabouts? I'd appreciate it.
Herra luutnantti, nyt valokuvataan.
The famous pre-war group photo where you see by the end that most of them didn't make it. I presume that's the foreshadowing of this.
Pojilla oli sellainen mieli, että nyt otetaan korkojen kanssa takaisin, mitä venäläinen meiltä talvisodassa ryöväsi.
So orders received, and the guys are off to reclaim Finnish territory from the Soviet Union. And this time I'm glad to see that the troops are using bicycles, because that was a comment I made in The Unknown Soldier.
Meille upseereille luettiin Mannerheimin päiväkäsky. Meidän ei tarvitse ottaa armolahjana sitä maata, joka verisiteen kuuluu meille.
Oh, I like those words by Mannerheim. We shall not accept as charity those lands which belong to us by blood. Powerful words, man. Powerful. So these women in uniforms, are they part of that unit that many of the Finnish commenters told me about? God forgive me, I can't think of the name off the top of my head. Is it Loretta? Loreta or ETTA, something like that?
Onko tänne tuotu sellaista luutnanttia poikaa? Eero Perkko. Kevytosasto 2. Se on sulhanen.
So this girl is the fiancée of the lieutenant we met at the start. Okay, good looking lady.
Ei me täällä mitään nimiä ehditä kyseleen. Nyt riittää. Eikö se lallatus lopu?
Bloody hell, this guy is a killjoy, isn't he? He wants the injured guys to stop singing, even though he's just trying to cheer up his injured comrades, and he won't even tell this lady if her fiancé's in or not. Come on, lad, don't be a dick.
Sinä niitä taas perkele. Eikö se lukkari Jussi ennen kuolleita on nähnyt? Mä kuule, kyllä olisin tuossa talvena jäätyneitä ruumiilta kollaan jo.
So one thing I did know about this movie before starting to review it is, because a commentator told me, this is also based on a novel by Antti Turi. Although, from what I've read, because I did have a quick look at IMDb, this movie deviates quite a bit from the novel, and a lot of people weren't happy with that. so it's more fiction than fact, unlike The Unknown Soldier, which was more leaning towards fact than fiction. One thing I like about this movie already, I can tell you, is the fact that the soldiers actually look quite young. Because often in Hollywood movies, they age up the soldiers to look more in command and more mature than they actually are. For example, in Band of Brothers, Captain Winters was only 24 when he undertook all these missions in the real-life World War II, while the actor who played him, Damian Lewis, was 35 at the time of playing him.
Mihinkä asti tässä sitten oikein mennään?
Sorokka, Murmanin radalle. Vienanmeren ranta.
Vai että niin pitkälle on suunniteltu?
So is that soldier questioning that it's not just to take back Finnish territory, it's to go further? And I know there was a lot of debate over that in the comments on The Unknown Soldier as well. People seem to have different thoughts on what the plan actually was. It was for a greater Finland. It was just to retake Finnish territory, to reclaim all of Karelia. The only thing I hope is, because I'm really not a fan of romances unless I'm forced to sit through them by the wife, which I am on occasion, is this movie going to be a romance set in a war movie? I hope not, because it wouldn't be my favourite thing automatically if it is.
Mä olin niin monta kertaa sut kuolleena nähnyt unessa.
Ei tuollaisia kannata nyt puhua. Sut pitää vaan saada täältä Suomen puolelle.
And to be honest, in fairness to that poor woman, the fiancé, she's probably dreaming and thinking that to emotionally prepare in case the worst does happen to her fiancé. And I do remember reading on IMDb that these two actors were actually either married in real life after the movie or during the filming of the movie, but they're married. If any of you have ever watched The Sopranos, Junior Soprano would not appreciate what's going on here now, even though he did it himself.
Uncle Jones in a muff. What? Oh, did I say muff? I meant rough. What's that smell? Did you guys go to a sushi bar?
The fuck's he talking about?
South of the border, down Mexico way.
And the fact that they were in a relationship or at the time of filming or either forming that relationship during filming obviously would have helped with the chemistry on screen. And they do seem to have quite a good chemistry on screen.
Sellainen asia olisi, että tänne oli eilen tuotu lottia. Ja pitäisi lähettää taaksepäin.
He shouldn't be complaining. He's quite lucky to have his lady with him at the front. Being able to do things to take his mind off the war and potential deaths of injuries to friends and comrades.
Asia selvä. Minä hoidan. Luutnantti Perkola. Minä tarvitsen vapaaehtoisen joukkueen erikoistehtävää.
See this guy, this lieutenant has screwed himself now. The officer is going, if I'm going to do you a favour by sorting out your fiancé, you're going to do me a favour by doing this special mission, which is probably a death mission.
Meillä ei ole mitään tietoa vihollisesta divisionan oikealla sivustalla. Siellä on 100 kilometrin aukko rintamassa.
There's a 100-kilometer hole in the front line? That's insane. Now, I knew it was a huge front, over 1,000 kilometers or something like that, or 800 kilometers. Correct me again in the comments if I'm wrong. But this officer now has to go and take a party and scout that breach to determine how many Russians are there. That's a death mission. Because of course the Russians are going to exploit that and put as many men through it.
Ne voi tuoda sieltä vaikka 100 000 miestä. Ei se ole kuin yksi ryssä metriä kohti.
And he's just going with a platoon. It's insanity. If I was to send men forward to do something like that, I'd probably order them to wear heavy camouflage, dig in sniper and observer positions, up the trees, and just monitor what's going on, and try and do radio communications at night, somewhere about a kilometer back from the breach.
Päivällä lähtee kolonna Lieksaan. Pääset siinä sitten pois.
Pidä tätä mukanasi.
Joukkue etenee Porajärven suuntaan ja asettuu siellä puolustukseen.
So their mission is not even to scout and observe, it's to defend against an unknown number? With a platoon? I'm sorry to be laughing, but that just sounds insane to me.
Rakkaani, minä odotan sinua, jota meidän ei enää tarvitse jakaa kenenkään kanssa. ei edes isänmaan.
Very true what this lady is saying. The whole point of a marriage is that you have someone in your life you can completely and 100% depend on. And that's why I always say, including to my own daughter, do not get married until you're 100% sure that that is the person that can do that for you and you can be the same for them.
Ei teidän ensimmäiseksi tarvitsisi poikaanne kärttiin laittaa. Ei täällä ole kenenkään poikia. Kaikki täällä on Suomen sotilaita.
The son is in the same brigade as the father? I thought people told me in the comments after Tavasoda that they stopped brigades of families and from the same village being formed. That seems insane. But again, because this movie is more fiction than fact, perhaps it's artistic license for the movie.
Louhela, viette tytöt haavoittuneiden mukana lieksi.
I'm just wondering, guys, a slightly off-path question, but as a farmer, I'm actually interested. With all those heavy firs growing in the forest, does it make the land in Finland quite acidic and difficult to grow stuff? Shit, the women auxiliaries are under attack. Is she going to get killed? So again, I suppose another example of the Russians attacking a convoy of wounded. Play dead, woman. They'll kill you. Play dead. Hiding under the truck ain't gonna do much. Get some blood wiping on you.
Ну ты чего? Не бойся.
You're gonna get raped, gang raped, which the Russians are quite famous for in World War II. The way this guy's looking, it looks like it. And I actually read that in the Soviet army in World War II, quite a lot of the women, the snipers, etc., were originally sent there. Their entire purpose was to be comfort troops for the officers. That's what I read based on papers that were released after the fall of the Soviet Union. And going back to the title of the movie, we now have our first ambush as well.
Puhutteko suomea?
Мы вас не понимаем. Мы говорим только по-русски. Мы простые люди, ничего плохого никому не делали.
So these guys are claiming to be native Karelians, who the Finnish soldiers are obviously here to liberate. So they need to kind of tread carefully, not treat them too harshly and annoy them, because otherwise they won't be welcomed as the liberators they want to be. But at the same time, they can't take risks, because they could be lying.
Kaikki tutkitaan. Ketään ei lasketa.
This guy's gonna get shot.
Minä jumalauta! Älkää ampuko! Tuli seis! Saatana, tuli seis!
Why did he mow him down? He could have shot him in the leg. Young, inexperienced soldier panicking again. Officer should have taken control there.
Kattokaa nyt mitä se piilotteli.
So what did he find? A revolver and a religious picture? The poor mother. The lieutenant should feel bad there. It's his fault. Should have taken better charge of that situation.
Tällaista ei enää tapahdu. Ei tapahdu, herra luutnantti. Poistukaa.
Well, hopefully the lieutenant's NCO, he looks to be a bit older, has a word with the lieutenant as well and say, you shouldn't let this happen again either.
Herra luutnantti. Karppinen sai talvisodassa Taipaleen, jolla aika pahan granaattikaun. Siitä on ollut aikaa ja toipua.
Okay, he's not inexperienced. He's a veteran of the Winter War, but with PTSD.
Herra luutnantti, käskydivisionan esikunnasta. Minulla on teille toinenkin viesti. Että partisanat hyökkäsi Lieksaan matkalla olleen kolonan kimppuun. Kaikki tapettiin.
Okay, so they weren't even regular Russian army or Soviet army. They were partisans, which means they're going to be even more undisciplined. So that poor lady is definitely going to be a sexual toy for those partisans. I do love the cinematography in this movie. It's stunning, just the reflection of the forest and the lake there. And this really shows Finland in quite a beautiful light. The cinematography is used as a great metaphor here, as the forest is reflecting upon itself in the lake. The lieutenant is reflecting on what he needs to do in the lake.
Kyllä minäkin surun tunnen. Minun mieleni tuli edes lohdutuksen sana Matteuksen evankeliumista.
Tässä mitään sanoja tarvitaan.
Divisioona hyökkää Rukajärveä kohti Lieksajärven pohjoispuolelta.
Me jäämme korolle odottamaan uutta käskyä.
I'm getting a bit confused, I won't lie. My understanding was, firstly, they were sent to scout and observe this 100-kilometer breach to see how many Russians were there. Then the lieutenant spoke to his men about building defences, and now they're about facilitating an attack. So I am kind of getting confused as to what actually is happening and what their purpose of being there is. So what, they think this hamlet or house is some sort of command center for the Soviets?
Jos kylä on tyhjä, annatte meille siitä merkin, me tullaan sitten perässä.
It's a village.
Tämä selvä.
Selvä on, luutnantti.
Lukkari.
Thank you. They're sending forward scouts to probe and observe. Exactly what you should do, because in part 4 of Band of Brothers, where they're attacking Quarantine, one of the things they're called winters out for is you send these troops straight up the middle, him and all, to attack the town without any probing or any scouts. However, I will say they should have set up mortars, if they have them, and machine guns as cover in case the guys get into trouble.
Hämäläinen. Sano miehille, että oot valmiina lähtemään kylään.
The other thing I question about their training here is they're checking each barn and house individually. They should be going in as a pair. But they're probably panicked, so I'll let that one go.
Eiköhän mennä. Kyllä siellä ryssä on. Odotetaan vielä.
It's also something I mentioned in my Band of Brothers reaction as well on Quarantine, that house clearing and street clearing is probably the most dangerous thing you can do as an infantryman. You literally can be shot from everywhere. When you're on the outside, there's no safe angle. Good idea. Check the furnace and stove to see if it's residual heat, which means people were there quite recently. And in this case, there is residual heat. So these villagers left in a hurry. They've left their dead grandmother behind. Interesting. So does this mean that the native Karelians were somewhat afraid, probably due to Soviet propaganda, of the Finnish troops? That they weren't there welcoming their liberation? I don't know. Maybe someone explain to me in the comments. So it seems like the native Karelians were quite religious and orthodox, it looks like, by the iconography. I presume the dead grandmother is making him cry by making him think of his own grief or what he thinks is his dead fiancé at this stage. So here we have ambush number 2 coming up, and these Russians are the idiots if they open fire on the first 2 soldiers sent forward, which is obviously a test. You let them clear, you stay hidden, you wait for the troops to come out in the open, the full body of troops, which you've hopefully flanked from both sides, and then it's a turkey shoot, man. Okay, so the Russians weren't as thick as I thought they would be. These guys are going to get slaughtered, man. Why are they all travelling together in a tight column? You should be dispersed when you're making a movement across open country like that. But why didn't the Russians open fire? I don't get it. They had them dead to rights in a tight column in open country with a dead line of sight on them. I don't know. Russians being Russians, I suppose.
Tästä on nyt mentävä yli.
So what's the plan here by the lieutenant with the 2 volunteers? Swim across the river and see if there's a load of Russians on the other side? Okay, again, if this was me, I would wait until nightfall. I would send more than 2 men across, and probably send at least 6, to swim quietly across with knives. obviously with weapons as well, but primarily to use knives, scout around, see what they're up against, if there's any enemy there, and take out any sentries with the knives and bring the rest of the platoon across.
Siellähän ne jo polkusiltaa rakentavat.
Again, I'm questioning this decision. So the two guys to send forward are building a plank bridge so that the rest of the platoon can cross. But again, if you're smart on the Russian side or the Soviet side, you're going to wait until they all bunch up in a tight column on that plank and then just riddle the bridge with grenades, machine guns, mortars, whatever. They can leave the bikes there and always come back for them once the area is clear.
Älä nyt helvetissä siihen jää keskelle salme!
At least the sergeant's right to kick that guy forward and keep it moving, but I still don't like that they're all on this plank bridge in the open daylight.
Te palaatte kävellen takaisin Repolaan. Tässä varaa mitään saattojoukkoja tommosten paskahousujen mukaan lähette.
Alright, I don't like this, Lieutenant. I've made my mind up. Sending a man back in his own enemy territory because the guy is suffering from PTSD, which he was told by his sergeant, and probably should never have been taken on the mission in the first place. And the sergeant should have actually, the NCO should have actually spoke up at that point, not before they left. And now he's insulting the guy on top of it because he lost his bike, sending them to almost certain death. All because of that lieutenant. Okay, I've gathered that this platoon doesn't have mortars. They're never using them. They're never setting them up as cover. But he loves sending just 2 men to do a scouting mission on buildings and villages. I think 2 is too little in my opinion.
Mikä teillä oli hätä?
Ei muuta kuin tuo tuossa noin.
Yep, that's a warning sign.
Ne on miinottaneet sen.
They may have mined it, but not very cleverly because it's so obvious.
Älä koska.
Tuokaa nyt kuitenkin jotain riukkua.
Ei tässä mitään riukua tarvita. Heittiä jumalauta!
Again, there's no discipline. Where's the lieutenant taking charge here?
Saatana hullu.
Älä nyt.
The only 2 people who seem to have sense here are the guy with the glasses and the tight blonde hair and the older bald sergeant. I'm going to say it again. I don't like this lieutenant. And here he is laughing like a jackass. If that man was in my command, he would not be laughing for long, I guarantee you that. My prediction for the rest of the movie is this mission is doomed with that lieutenant in charge. I still think this house is booby-trapped. I don't know, I just have a feeling. I knew it. Again, the lieutenant. Okay, there's a weapon there. That's warning enough. He let his men do something stupid. He didn't order that the house be carefully checked for booby traps. Even my instinct sitting here as a viewer told me there was something wrong there.
Ja syyssäde peittää sen siunauksilla. Aamen.
That kind of looks like Irish soda bread. Can someone let me know what type of soda bread that is? Wheat bread? Rye bread?
Etkö sinä laulaisi jotakin Heikkisen muistoksi?
Yeah, the only song I'll be singing for that dead guy is You lived like a fool, you died like a fool. Sorry to be harsh, but he did. He was more brave than smart, and you need to be both as a good soldier. I'm not getting any translation for the words of this song, guys. It sounds beautiful, to be honest. It sounds like a mix of a religious hymn and an Italian opera type song, or an aria, to my ears. And that's not a bad thing, that's a good thing actually.
Jos niillä on ollenkaan korvia päässään, niin ne kuulevat, kun puolitupa lensi ilmaan. Ja jos ne tänne tulevat, ne huomaavat, että täällä on muitakin vastassa kuin lottia ja haavoittuneita.
Very brave words, but looking at your leadership so far, I'm not sure if you're going to do that much damage to the Russians. Remember I said in The Unknown Soldier, the Perkele guy that kept shouting Perkele at the men retreating and, you know, shot the guy? And he should have been shot, that officer. I think this lieutenant should be shot. Honestly, he's only in his own head. He's not leading his men. He's caught up with his own emotional trauma. Yeah, okay, I'm a bit harsh saying he should be shot, but he should be sent back. I think the senior NCOs here should be going, your mind's not in the game, son, since you got that news about your fiancé. We've lost 2 guys already. You've made bad decisions. You need to go back. And he was also taking point for the squad there as well, which is something the lieutenant shouldn't do.
Ei siitä kyllä kovin kauan ole, kun täällä ihmisiä on ollut. Ruuatkin on vasta laitettu. Nyt jatketaan. Sitten korollista levätä.
Another terrible decision by this lieutenant. Listen to your bloody NCOs. There's food just being left out. There's obviously people knocking around. Thank God the NCOs see it. Actually, I don't even know if these 2 guys have been calling NCOs are NCOs. They don't seem to have stripes. They just seem to be experienced. Russians leaving wounded behind. What a surprise. We still see the same happening in Ukraine today. What's he gonna do? Grenade himself to death like they're doing in Ukraine?
Saarissa voi olla venäläisiä. Joten kierrätte saaret. Ja kun tulette Repolaan, niin annatte tämän divisionan esikuntaan. Että venäläisiä ei ole tavattu.
Like, honestly, what's going on with this lieutenant? He's sending a message back to division headquarters saying there's no Russians, while at the same time saying, we don't know if there's Russians here, circle around and scout out for them. I don't know. This guy's a genius. And I mean that wholly sarcastically.
Ottakaa! Ottakaa tämä mukaan, siinä on osoite päällä. Laitoin menemään äitille kirjeen.
And another thing I want to point out, that lieutenant has been an asshole because he could have easily sent that father's son back to headquarters where he'd be safe instead of leaving him out with the father in danger. Can't afford to take prisoners. You have one choice here, and that's to put a bullet in them. You're on a mission. That takes priority. Not one injured Russian soldier.
Kukahan jumalaton täälläkin on pesäänsä pitää? Saattaa olla, että tämä on ollut joskus kansakoulu.
And guys, if you're going into this house after what happened to your comrade, check for frigging booby traps. You can't afford to leave him behind because the enemy may find him and put him back into action after he's treated. So the only logical thing to do as a soldier here is to execute him.
Mä tiedän tarkalleen, miltä susta tuntuu.
You shouldn't be engaging with a prisoner like this, creating a human connection. Unfortunately, in war, you would have to dehumanize your enemy as much as possible to be able to do what you need to do.
Meitä ne ihmistä jätet.
Säkö sen kannat kenttäsairaalaan?
And the guy with the glasses is speaking sense. You can't take care of him. Yes, it's the humanitarian to do, but it's not militarily smart.
Emme tähänkään asumaan jäädä.
Eikö se ollut niin, että tällä korollissa odotellaan uutta käskyä?
This lieutenant is not even communicating to his men what the plan is. And as I said, the plan keeps changing from what I can see. He seems to have, which may be linked to his missing fiancé or what he thinks is dead fiancé, the plan seems to be his own personal agenda. Sorry, I have to question again, and I'm sorry for laughing. I'm not laughing at a comedy here. I'm laughing at tragedy. They know there's Russians around. They have a prisoner who was left there, and there doesn't seem to be anyone on guard, and they're all around a big open fire, showing them off in the night. Madness. But again, respect to this guy with the glasses. He did what needed to be done. It's the smart decision militarily. It's not humanitarian, but war isn't humanitarian.
Ei olisi ollut mikään pakko sitä tappaa.
Saarinen lähtee nyt kärkeen.
Yksi.
What's he at again? He's sending a guy on his own knowing there's Russians out there. Oh. Don't just stand there, man, move. And Lieutenant, send some bloody people with him, not on his own. I'm getting frustrated now. I actually am getting frustrated. There we go. What else was going to happen? They're doing typical sniper tactics from the Soviets, which is smart. Put bullets in him, but not enough to kill him. They should have done in that situation is wound him enough so that he screams, demoralize the men, make them want to try and rescue him. And now they've done the stupid thing and killed him. Fortunately, Lieutenant, I think you're the devil in this situation. You sent that man to his death. He's still alive. He took about 20 shots. He's still alive. That's a bit unbelievable now. That's more on the fiction side, I would say.
2 miestä alas hakemaan Saarinen.
Miten pitkälle mennään?
No niin pitkälle, että Saarinen löytyy.
And now he's sending people to retrieve the body without the bloody position being secure. Yeah, time for this lieutenant to go one way or another.
Jumalauta!
Great, and to top it off, the lieutenant's a terrible shot.
Jäi unto hakematta! Nyt mentiin!
Some of the special effects there weren't great and the explosions. The shell that went off by the guy holding the latte there, it just looked like a puff of smoke. Because if that was a real shell, that guy would be full of shrapnel.
Tässä käskyssä sanotaan, että meidän pitää liittyä divisionan hyökkäykseen Virolla. Me isketään venäläisen selkään heti aamulla.
Well, that's good that you're attacking them from behind. You should have the element of surprise then. But knowing this guy, he'll screw it up somehow. Tell me this is the guy that took all those bullets, fell into the river, and somehow he's made it back? Please someone tell me that's real, that really happened. Because if it is, like, major respect to that soldier.
Jumalauta! Se on Saarinen!
You go and help him, lads. That guy must have more holes in him than a kitchen sieve, you know, you use for sifting flour.
Me käytiin kyllä unto sua etsimässä.
What caliber rounds are the PPSH, which it looked like the Russians were firing at Saarinen there? I actually don't know. It must be high caliber for him to take that many shots and still be alive if it's based on fact. I'm assuming it's based on fact. But it's more likely to be fiction because it just seems so unreal. What's the make of the pistol the lieutenant has in his hand there? It looks like a Luger, but it could be a Finnish weapon I'm not familiar with. Again, the lieutenant's taking point, which if he was a good lieutenant, he shouldn't be doing, as I said. Again, question mark over the special effects. It's too obvious they all went off at the same time there, and they're full of flames. You wouldn't really get that with a real artillery barrage.
Metsän takana on joki ja siitä pitäisi sitten päästä yli.
You can see it again there. The 3 columns of fire on the left-hand side all went up simultaneously. So the timing of the effects is not quite right.
Tuonne sitten meni.
Pelottaako?
Kyllä pelottaa, herra luutnantti.
Good. You should be afraid going into battle, but you need to channel that fear into your weapon.
Pysyt minun lähellä, etkä hätäile. Kypärä päähän.
I still can't believe the lieutenant hasn't sent this guy's son home, or back to the rear, to somewhere safe. Or at least tell him, we're going to attack, you stay here and cover our backs. Do something to protect this guy's son. Good stuff. At least they caught the Soviets by hitting them from the rear unawares. So the strategic decision by Corporate Division Headquarters was smart to send this platoon around to the back. At last, the lieutenant makes a smart decision, flanking left and right, with him and a few men going up the centre. At last! And again, rather than taking static defensive positions, they're running and attacking, which is absolutely the right thing to do here as well. I'm worried for this dude's son, man. So is this our last and final ambush? No, the guy with the glasses after getting hit, he was my favourite guy in this whole platoon. He's not dead, thank God, and hopefully it stays that way. Ah, the sun bothered, I knew it. And by the way, again, I'm going to call out the special effect there. That explosion was terrible. Isn't terribly done. Bayonet to the neck, man. Don't tell me this idiot lieutenant is going to be the last man standing. He just got hit with an artillery shell as well, so maybe not. He's alive. Kind of disappointed he's alive. Sorry. I would much preferred a lot of the other people in the platoon survived. The father, the son, the guy with the glasses, the other smart NCO, Saarinen who's wounded. Oh, it looks like he's captured. So, what? He's going to end up a prisoner with the fiancé? Is that what's going to happen? They have to cross paths. We know that because she was in it at the start of the movie and there's no point showing her capture otherwise. He is alive, and my favourite character is alive as well. And the dad's alive. And by the way, that Russian soldier who took too long to shoot the lieutenant shows exactly why you never hesitate in war. Don't you start taking risks now, Dad. So at least these guys here are doing what I said should have been done in The Unknown Soldier at the very end of it. They're on the opposite side of the bank. They set up a defensive line to cover the other guys crossing, and the dad is staying there with the machine gun to fend off the attacking Soviets, which is exactly what didn't happen in The Unknown Soldier. So maybe the author, I don't know whether this book came first or second, so maybe the author learned from his mistake in the first book if The Unknown Soldier was first. Oh crap, the dad got it. I think the dad would have been okay dying knowing the son was alive, so at least he got to see that.
Solkuukaa luutnantti teilläkin hengenmeno lähellä. Meillä ei ollut mitään tietoa, että sieltä meikäläisiä tulossa.
Great, so Division didn't even inform the other attacking Finnish troops that there was Finnish platoon sent to the rear and to watch out for them. She seems to have been released by the partisans or escaped, but she looks in shock, so I presume because she's been sexually assaulted and treated like dirt. Yeah, this girl's definitely been raped and sexually assaulted. Maybe if the lieutenant hears she's still alive, he might get his head out of his arse and start doing things properly. And think about his men.
Jos jotain oli, niin toivoisin, ettei sitä jää mitään.
If I was Saarinen here, I'd have some very strong words for that lieutenant.
Onko sinulla tupakkaa?
Ei.
Oh boy, there's hard feelings for me anyway on behalf of Saarinen. And he's a better man than me. He's forgiving him. Ah, the fiancé. Of course it's the fiancé they're looking at. I'll talk about this a little more in my outro, guys, but I think the director has screwed up in a number of points in this movie.
Minä elän jo huomisessa, josta unelmoin tätä viestiä sinulle kirjoittaessani. Siellä minä odotan sinua.
So is the director trying to say here, you know, the hope is using this young couple, that love will outlast war? But now that this fiancé, the lady fiancé, has gone through the trauma of war and the rapes and sexual assaults, it's obvious that it's happened to her, even though we haven't seen it or haven't seen her say it. Will she be able to get through the trauma of war? Will love conquer all? I presume that's what he's trying to do here. And now she's back with the fiancé. The director is showing her in the morning light, showing that light has come back into the darkness that's surrounding her. So actually this shot is done quite well. You have the darkness surrounding them. Their love is the light that's come back into her life and can begin healing her. Hey guys, and welcome back, and that was Rukayavan. So what did I think? Honestly guys, I think this movie was a bit of a mess comparing to The Unknown Soldier and Talvasoda. The director deviated from the source material quite a lot, and I think that impacts what we've seen on screen today. There's a few reasons why I feel this way. One is the purpose, I believe. I haven't read the novel, know nothing about the novel, but I assume that the purpose of showing the young couple's love and the fiancé and the lieutenant was to kind of represent, you know, love will overcome all, will overcome even the worst things of war, which is represented through the rape of and the sexual assaults experienced by the fiancé, the lady fiancé, and seeing the wounded shot and how she was captured and everything. So instead what we ended up with is her disappearing very early on in the movie. We see nothing of what happened to her, right? Zero. We're left with assumptions based on the way she walked into camp and was all kind of shivering and looked kind of mentally distressed. Instead, we focused on the lieutenant being obsessed with his missing fiancé and just committing mistake after mistake and not really giving a damn about his men and, you know, sending men to their death, making unwise military decisions. And it just felt like a very frustrating story to me because I just wanted to slap that lieutenant in the head all the time and stop being such a selfish bastard, you know? You've got your platoon to worry about now. If the director had focused more on the lady and what happened to her and kind of switched back and forth, that might have made it more palatable and relatable to understand what the lieutenant was going through. But as I said, I felt no sympathy for him because he just came across as a dick, concerned about himself and being selfish and risking these men's lives. And it didn't matter because he was kind of half suicidal himself because he thought his life was over. Two more bad things I will point out. The movie couldn't make up its mind whether it was a love story or a war story. Now you can have both, but there wasn't enough of either one, if that makes sense. There's too little of the love, too little of the war, and you ended up with kind of something in between, which didn't really work in my opinion. And I spoke about the reason why before. And then this last bad thing about the movie is some of the special effects were poor. The shell that went off beside Ville was literally just a puff of smoke and some sparkling lights, right? Twice when they went towards the forest, we had 3 shells supposedly land simultaneously. Doesn't happen. And you know, it happened twice in a row. So the special effects in Talvasoda, which is 10 years older than this movie, were more well done than they were in this movie. I don't know if there's a budget difference between the two, and that may account for it. And obviously The Unknown Soldier, being a more modern movie, had better special effects in my opinion. For the good part, I really enjoyed the character, and I can't remember his the guy with the glasses. I really liked him. I really liked the dad of Vile as well. I can't understand why the son was with the dad, but as I said, this is more fiction than fact, so maybe that wasn't real. What else? The acting was quite strong, even by the lieutenant and the fiance. It was good because he really did make me hate him, right? So the acting I enjoyed by all the characters. It's just the story was far too disjointed for me. It didn't seem to understand in this movie what it wanted to be, and it just didn't hold well together. So I'm going to have to say that this is my least favourite out of the 3 that I've watched so far. I'd probably give this an average score of 6 is probably where I'd put it. I don't know what your thoughts are, guys. Maybe you think I'm being too harsh, and maybe the book is far better and does the story far better. And please, for anyone who's read the book, explain to me the differences between the book and the movie, because I don't have that frame of reference. And if the book does it better. And what the book was trying to be. Was it trying to be a love story? Was it trying to be that love conquers all? Or was it more of a war novel? It's really hard to tell from this movie, as I said, the way it's put together. But yeah, that's all I have to say on this, guys. Remember, if you want to check out the full reaction, you can get a 7-day free trial to my Patreon using the link below, where you can also get access to my exclusive Band of Brother reactions, with more exclusive reactions coming shortly. And as I always say, take care of yourselves, take care of your families, God bless, and bye for now.